Alright, welcome back to another video of Davian's collection of VHS, DVDs, games, and more. Today I have an exciting collection for you to show. This is my Hit Entertainment DVD and VHS collection. As you can see, I have 1 Hit Entertainment VHS and 16 Hit Entertainment DVDs. Now, this one here is the Lyrics Studios one, which I'll show you in a moment. It's going to be freaking epic. Now let's get on to the video. Starting off, this is the only VHS in my collection. This is Barney's Great Adventure, the movie. This thing works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. It's in a purple case. Here's the tape. Now we move on to DVDs. Starting with is Thomas and Friends and Thomas's Friends Help Out. This thing works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is the Wiggles Dance Party. This is the classic Wiggles. It's in a green case, which is perfectly rare. This thing works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is the Wiggles Hoop-de-Doo is a Wiggly Party. It's in a red case. This thing works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is Barney's Musical Scrapbook. It's a Barney video cassette. I mean DVD. Sorry. Didn't even notice this thing's a DVD. But it's in a purple case like the video cassette I have. This thing works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is Thomas and Friends and Thomas's Friends Get Along and Other Thomas Adventures. This thing works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is 10 Years of Thomas and Friends. This thing works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is Barney Song. This thing works perfectly fine, but the hit extras and one trailer messes up in the bonus features, but the disc works perfectly fine. Next up is Thomas and Friends and Percy's Ghostly Trick. This thing works perfectly fine and no issues whatsoever. Next up is Thomas and Friends and Thomas's Trusty Friends. This thing features Jack and the Soda Construction Company, and this thing works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is Barney, and You Can Be Anything. This thing works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever, even though in the PlayStation 2, it only messes up at the end. Next up is Thomas and Friends and Calling All Engines. It is the movie. This thing works perfectly fine, but the DVD player in the PS2, it refuses to read most of the time, but it does work otherwise. Next up is Thomas and Friends and Thomas and the Runaway Kite. This is the first DVD with CGI animation. It's in a blue case, and this thing works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is Thomas and Friends and Thomas's Snowy Surprise. This thing works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is Thomas and Friends and Track Stars. This thing works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is the Hit Entertainment compilation DVD Frosty Friends, featuring Thomas and Friends, Barney and Friends, Bob the Builder, Pinju, and Kipper the Dog. This thing works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Last but not least is Awesome Adventures Volume 1. So, this thing's also a compilation hit entertainment DVD. This thing works perfectly fine and no issues whatsoever. Now that's gonna do with me with my hit entertainment DVD collection as of February 2022. This is Davian's collection of VHS, DVDs, games, and more. Thank you for watching. I hope you like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you again in my next video.